Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Piglet here once again, and I am back for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Sonic and SEGA All-Stars Racing, while we're still experiencing the mission mode for specifically the Xbox 360 / PlayStation 3 / Nintendo Wii / PC, because as far as I'm aware, unlike the DS version, it does have some different amount of missions, for I did manage to able to experience the DS version on my spare own time, but I'll explain more on that in a moment. So, anyway, last time we've essentially did manage to able to tackle through mission 23 all the way up to 32. So, all in all, we actually did those missions quite well actually, with all this particular AAA ranks, so as a result, I think it's going to be pretty swell, I have to say, in terms of the forms of certain progression, as well as certain performance for some missions. So today, for this video, is about the fact that we're going to be continuing on and move on to mission 33, where basically we're going to be going ahead and play as Ooh La La from Space Channel 5, and as a result, we're going to be tackling for mission number 33, like I stated before, and it looks like we're about to jump right into the forms of Pinball Highway by collecting things, specifically collecting certain rings. So, yeah, that's our next goal around here. So, nothing else I could really say about this mission, honestly, though, apart from the fact that I'm pretty sure that, as far as I've mentioned about this before, since on Friday, is that we now ended up in the halfway point in Journey Forms of in mission mode already, before we're able to actually finally finish up everything for the console version for the likes of Sonic and SEGA All-Stars Racing, most likely, because as far as I'm aware, I was originally trying to able to mention about the forms of in the DS version, while trying to able to actually do these usual introduction commentary and what have you. Well, as it turns out about the fact that, well, I might decide able to tackle through the DS version of Sonic and SEGA All-Stars Racing in the future. Well, let's just say not right now though, but eventually at some point I will do. But let's not get ahead of ourselves for this point right now, just because no matter what though, jeez Louise, Ooh La La's racing controls just feels a bit weird at times, which I totally get about the fact that she was on the, like a floating kind of car or something, but chances are though is about the fact that you simply have to collect some buttons of rings, and that's all you have to do, like I said this before, but either way, and yeah, that's what I can really say about the forms of this mission, honestly. But there is one particular aspect, or actually multiple things I would like to point out, is that we've got some exciting news to tell you for this point, folks. And that, ladies and gentlemen, well, first of all, today's date, of course, there is the 29th of April today, in some cases in 2024 today, so naturally speaking, only 2 more days to go until we're approaching into May. So no matter what though, speaking of May, not only did recently about the fact that it's been about a week ago since that not only does Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble did receive a brand new trailer, but this time it involves around multiplayer, but also, get this, we finally got our hands on with the forms of an overview trailer for Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door Switch Remake. And not only that, it happens in Journey Forms of in, let's just say, in last Thursday morning for the sake of the forms of the Japanese version, for I've noticed, but eventually it did somehow release the English version later down the road as well. So generally speaking though, still, I am super excited about the forms of that particular remake, like I've already established that before, especially noticeable because, well, we'll explain more details about that if we eventually get on to the next Grand Prix mission. So as you can see, we're now on mission number 34, where basically we're going to be going into let's just say Sewer Scrapes racetrack, and basically though we're going to be able to take control of those 2 duo characters in the exact same time, based off from the likes of Virtual Fighter series, as far as I'm aware. Well, mind you, I haven't exactly played any of those Virtual Fighter games. Well, I definitely heard about them, thanks to the forms of, not only for the sake of the forms of this game, but it's also about the fact that no matter what though, I definitely heard about the game called Virtual Fighter 5 for the PlayStation 3, back in Journey Forms of, I would say in 2007 or something like that. Well, mind you, it's been quite some time since I actually have bought something for PlayStation 3, ever since in Journey Forms have been well, SEGA Superstars Tennis, at least as far as I'm usually concerned with this point. But as you can tell, we ended up in a knockout match, so because of that, once again, if you're in first place, then obviously you get yourselves a nice AAA rank, so everything else will become to expect. Especially noticeable because, well, I don't know about you, but I seem to really enjoy those knockout missions because, as far as I'm aware, not only because it was exhilarating, but it's also quite intense as well. Especially noticeable during the forms of in the second place position for one of those racers, obviously almost caught up to you. And my goodness, it was pretty tense sometimes, especially noticeable depending on what racetrack you go into. Like, I don't know if we can able to actually access to knockout match in during the forms of in multiplayer, likely for local multiplayer, but I haven't exactly figured this out for myself, you see. So because of that, here we go on to the next mission where we're going to be able to take control of the ultimate life form, Shadow the Hedgehog. And as it turns out, we're going to be continuously doing some boosting while trying to go through like some curves as well as some certain drifting and even with boost pads as well. So generally speaking, I have no idea what the heck just happened right there with that particular stunt fail. But no matter what though, it doesn't really matter to me though, because this mission is pretty easy still, especially noticeable until eventually later on though, that certain missions can get a little bit more difficult, mainly due to the forms of not only for that particular track you're going to be able to participating in for, but it's also about the fact that I'm pretty concerned that once we get to the later racing missions, that the rubber banding AI can sometimes feel a bit slightly aggressive at one point. So either way, that mission is pretty much, you know, easy, like I said before. So anyway, let's get to the forms of this particular topic about the forms of not only for Super Monkey Ball, Banana Rumble, but also with Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door remake on the Switch. So, as I've already mentioned about this before, yes indeed, we've somehow got these two trailers respectively. One for the sake of the forms of the overview trailer for Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door remake on Switch, and the other one which appears to be by the forms of multiplayer trailer for Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble. And actually, as it turns out, they somehow revealed not one, but two brand new party games that has been shown, which I'll explain more about that until whatever we get into again during the forms within the Grand Prix mission. So because of that though, let's select A New Day, which as far as I'm aware, that musical track is actually based off from Sonic Rush. So because of that though, as you can see on this mission right here, we're going to be playing as Knuckles in during the forms within Ocean Ruin racetrack, and as you can see, as always, we need to collect certain rings, just like the forms of how it does it on mission number 33, but this time it did manage to take place in a different racetrack. And if I recall correctly, I made a mistake from the likes of in the last video, since in Journey Forms within a couple of days ago, that I somehow accidentally did say that the Ocean Ruin was expected to be on Team Sonic Racing, but as it turns out, it was false, because as far as I'm aware, I did manage to able to double check on the actual Wikipedia, and as it turns out that I believe Ocean Ruin does not return in the forms within Team Sonic Racing after all, because as far as I'm aware, if I recall correctly, that during the forms of specific locations, usually like 7 locations in Team Sonic Racing, they obviously try to divide into 3 different courses based off from specific regions. Like for instance with the forms within Seaside Hill track, that basically though it does manage to contain Whale Lagoon as well as Lost Powers in Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, whilst meanwhile we're able to receive Ocean View from All-Stars Racing Transformed. The only missing feature for that track is obviously with the transformation gimmick, like you know what I'm saying, racing on boats and stuff like that, or in some cases though, racing on the water or something. So, but then again though, it's been a very long time since I actually have last experienced Team Sonic Racing, since on the Switch version, like I've already established that before. So anyway, so as you can see, we now move on to the next mission, where we're going on to that particular racetrack based off from, you know, Jet Set Radio Future. And this time, we're now going to be playing as Speedy Joe from the likes of the forms of Crazy Taxi. So, yeah, and basically, we have to go and deal with the time gates. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure, as far as I'm aware, when it comes to the forms of the later missions based off from time gates, this is where the difficulty starts able to ramp up ridiculously high. at least to be more specifically, depending on what mission you go into at some form or another. Which, kind of think about it though, for those time gate missions, does remind me of a similar vibes as the forms of not only boost challenge for the likes of Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed, but also with the forms of the checkpoint challenges from Team Sonic Racing as well, because you need to be so accurate with all that particular boosting drifts or anything else like that, even though it's a bit tricky to explain, because like I've already established that before, that it's been a very long time since I actually have last played not only Team Sonic Racing, but also with Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed, because I don't know about you, because I'm pretty sure I'm more accustomed to the forms of playing Sonic and SEGA All-Stars Racing the most, mainly because it is pretty simple to able to try to get used to with the controls and what have you, although mind you, the most of the music is actually heavily borrowed from the original counterparts based off from the sake of the forms of other parts, like, usually relatively speaking though, they are basically, you know, the original OST for, you know what I'm saying. So, anyways, here we go on to the next mission, where basically we're going to be taking control of II, and as a result, we're going to be going on to Rocky Coaster racetrack, and no matter what though, we need to be able to aim for first place, if assuming, gee, how come Shadow was actually in the lead again? Like, I don't know about you, maybe it's probably because of his, the Year of Shadow has been going on? Well, that might be besides the point, but anyway. And as far as I'm aware, we'll once again got able to go into this particular track within 2 laps, so ever since Journey Bombs have been, Sunshine Cup. So, at least to be more specifically in one of those missions, in mission, 32, basically. So, anyways though, yeah, let's talk about the forms of Super Monkey Ball, Banana Rumble, as I've already established that earlier. So yeah, as it turns out, no matter what though, like I said before, not only does it show us 3 of those specific party games that we've already known about that already, since in the usual announcement trailer, but also about the fact that they've shown us 2 more party games they have somehow revealed. And when it comes to the forms of the party games they somehow revealed, for the likes of Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble, they had a grand total of 5 party games this time around. So it's way more smaller in comparison to the forms of how it does it on not only Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz HD, but also with Super Monkey Ball Banana Mania. So no matter what though, because compared to Banana Blitz HD, it does have a grand total of 10 party games, which leaves 40 remaining ones in a cutting room floor, mainly because the forms of motion controls is heavily utilized in the forms of in the original version of Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz. And usually for Super Monkey Ball Banana Mania, they obviously do manage to contain 12 party games, which obviously brings back the nostalgic memories from not only for Super Monkey Ball 1, but also with Super Monkey Ball 2 as well. So naturally speaking though, is that Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble were able to actually bring 5 party games. So again, it's pretty small. Usually, I will admit it though right away, it's definitely slightly better than the forms of how it does it on its bare bones selections of party games, and I was literally so close to being first! Oh well, no big deal, we'll take double A, I guess. So, kudos to you, Shadow, because obviously you're still in the forms of the period of the Year of Shadow, of course. So, I honestly don't mind, because obviously Shadow is cool and everything, but oh well, beggars can't be choosers. So, but at least we somehow passed for this particular mission, because again, if you're in 4th or lower, then obviously you get lower ranks for the sake of the forms of not only B, but all the way up to E, which as a result, if you somehow claim those specific ranks, then obviously you get mission failed. So you have to aim for not only singular A, but also double A, and even triple A. So that's something worth in mind. So anyways, let's move on to the next mission now, and we're going back into Treetops, but this time we're going to be playing as Amy, and it seems to be more specifically, we're about to start to be able to be doing, let's just say, drifting. So, because I can definitely tell with the particular display, or that particular preview of that particular speech bubble. So, anyway, in terms of the forms of what party games they did somehow revealed, for the sake of the forms of the most recent trailer, We already know about 3 of them, which actually, as it turns out, is going to be not only racing, which is pretty cool, but also with the forms of Banana Hunt, and on top of that, Robot Smash. And in addition to that, they've somehow revealed 2 new party games have been revealed, as I mentioned this so many times already. And those 2 in questioning are, let's just say, Kaboom, which basically kind of reminds me of Tag from the likes of Sonic Rivals 2, where basically though, if you accidentally caught the bomb, then obviously you have to pass it to somebody. It's like a survival thing, basically. And as far as the 5th and final one is concerned, it appears to be buddy forms of a goal kind of game, which is pretty strange, which as a result, all you have to really do in that particular mini game in mind is that you have to go through that particular specific goal, and it's a bit tricky to explain because I already know for a fact that, well, obviously the game wasn't exactly out yet, of course, so relatively speaking, I think that's as far as we can able to think about it. Also, surprisingly enough, I was quite surprised that Tiana, she's completely forgot to mention about during the course of Princess Peach Showtime Let's Play so far, that basically that she obviously forgot to mention is that another one of those trailers that basically did show us the actual the story trailer, that for some reason the plot MacGuffins with the forms of the multicolored plot MacGuffins you're about to be collecting, it looks rather similar to the forms of the Chaos Symbols, doesn't it? Except the fact that with a different shape, and as far as I'm aware, we don't exactly know about the forms of that specific name of these plot MacGuffins for this point just yet. Well, mind you though, because of how the fact that we're still in April after all. So, potentially speaking, I was about the fact that, now, I was originally trying to able to explain about the forms of my, final thoughts about the forms of Knuckles the series during the forms of it today, but suffice to say, I think it's probably best if we let either Tiana or myself were able to mention more about it if whenever we get to on Wednesday or Tuesday respectively, even though it really depends really, but either way. Now, as far as the forms of Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door remake as far as I'm concerned, with the overview trailer just already came up, not only for Japan, but also with the English versions as well, which I'm almost assuming about the fact that they're trying to save it up until exactly in May, but that's actually pretty cool that we somehow received the overview trailer way earlier than I was expecting, and I'm gonna say, I was really impressed of how that particular overview trailer did somehow turn out to be. Like, first of all, obviously though, is about the fact that they've mentioned about the forms of, you know, how amazing the visuals looked, and on top of all that stuff though, they somehow managed able to bring up quite a lot of quality of life improvements, including one specific thing that I was on about, which as a result, thank God, the actual backtracking system is no longer a problematic, because as far as I'm aware, unlike the forms of the original version of the game, it doesn't really matter if you're able to actually do, like, I don't know, Chapter 2 or Chapter 7 or something. Oh god, don't even get me started on Chapter 7, specifically in the beginning, where you have to able to talk to General White. I mean, that is the most infamous method for able to try to do a lot of backtracking involved, where I will have to admit it though right away, that it did surprisingly took me about 1 attempt, whilst unlike in a very long time ago, back in 2008 or something, my god, I got confused, which as a result, that's how I essentially stopped playing Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door back in I would say 2009, in the beginning anyway. That's why I somehow almost about to give up experiencing it, until it wasn't until in 2015 that I somehow experienced the game again, but thankfully with a much more better experience than the forms of how it does it back in 2008 or 2009, because as far as I'm aware, every nowadays the GameCube version original for Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door gets extremely expensive these days, whilst thankfully the Switch remake now exists. So anyway, back on topic. As far as I'm aware, that they did somehow manage able to, well, modernize the forms of the UI display, which I will say, it does look pretty cool. And as far as I'm usually concerned, it's kind of unfortunate about the fact that we didn't get a chance to see some brand new side content, specifically that any other fans out there was expecting for Paper Luigi content, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Well, I will admit though, I am perfectly fine with that, especially noticeable because we can able to experience this legendary Mario RPG game again, except this time on a go, that you can play the game on a go, I should say. And it's also worth noting for, yes, the graphics look absolutely gorgeous, and also keep this in mind, that it also features some new features that has been added during the forms of this particular remake, which one of those things in particular, as I mentioned this before for the sake of the forms of about a few minutes ago, and that's what it appears to be. They try to improve the annoying backtracking aspect, which as a result, that way, do you guys even remember back in during the forms of in 2020, you know, with the game with the forms of Paper Mario the Origami King, where basically if you managed able to complete certain worlds in that game, basically though you can able to actually access to fast travel for the sake of the forms of, you know, world to world or specific locations you're able to actually go into. Well, suffice to say, for Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door remake, somehow managed able to bring back the fast travel system, which I will say that, well, to be fair though, about the fact that they somehow managed able to try to replace a new, the old design hallway with that particular warp pipe segment. Well, as it turns out, they're going to be replacing that into a brand new area, which as a result is actually called the Pipe Zone, which obviously, if I've seen the actual preview gameplay footage of the entire remake, my goodness, I'm very, very happy about this change, especially noticeable because imagine this, right? If I was expecting to try to able to experience Chapter 7 again, or to be more specifically, if I was trying to able to go for a full 100% completion of that game, specifically if I was trying to able to tackle through the Troubling Center, basically though, I don't have to worry about the forms of that very, very annoying problem that was found in Journey forms within the original version of the game, which I will say I was very happy about it. And there's also another new feature they've added in, and that's of course the partner ring, where basically though, if you're trying to press the L button, if I recall, basically though, it acts like a shortcut, so you can able to actually just to quickly switch those partners on the fly, which I think we somehow predicted that, since in Journey forms within a couple of days ago, thanks to the forms of one of those Japanese images they did show us for the sake of the forms of one of those segments in Chapter 4. So yeah, we somehow predicted that correctly. So that was actually a nice feature, especially noticeable because, well, obviously it makes sense to able to actually have that quick partner switch mechanic outside of battles. So yeah, that's actually pretty awesome. So anyway, there's also another new feature they added in. That's what appears to be one of those brand new badges you can able to find. But it's even really, really cool though. And that's what appears to be none other than the GameCube badge, which as a result is actually called Nostalgic Tunes badge. Which, do you guys even remember back in Journey Forms of It last year that we've already did somehow receive Super Mario RPG Remake since in last year? That basically though you can able to actually toggle through not only the remake soundtrack but also with the original Super Nintendo soundtrack. Well, I'm happy to report that it's gonna able to actually function the same way, except the fact that this time around though it's actually badge equipment. So because of that, basically though, what the Nostalgia Tunes does is that if you do manage to equip that, basically though, it actually changed the new soundtrack into the original GameCube soundtrack, which that's actually pretty awesome. And to make matters even better, that it does not cost your badge points. So because of that, it's actually going to cost you 0 badge points. So yeah, that's actually pretty awesome, especially noticeable. If I somehow managed able to experience the original OST again for the likes of the Nintendo Switch version, well, I can easily do that. And what's even ridiculous than that is that it actually costs 1 coin to buy it, which is actually kind of insane, which is especially noticeable because unlike any other badges you can able to buy, for certain shops anyway, it does manage to cost coins, whilst usually for the Nostalgic Tunes badge, it actually costs 1 coin, which is pretty strange, but I'm honestly going to be fine with that, especially noticeable because again, I am so looking forward to able to be listening into the amazing soundtrack of Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door again, specifically the original version of it, because as far as I'm aware, it'll be super duper awesome to able to hear that amazing nostalgic soundtrack again. And there's also another thing I want to point out in terms of the forms of Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door Remake, is that do you guys even know about the fact that with that particular unknown character for a purple costume Toad that we've already on about, since when it first announced that particular remake of Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door Remake? Well, as it turns out, it is indeed confirmed about the fact that it is actually going to be a purple combat Toad. And as a result, no matter what though, do you guys even remember during the forms of it not only Paper Mario Color Splash, but also with the forms of Paper Mario The Origami King, where basically though, if you attempt to struggle with the forms of the actual battling, well, as it turns out, is that the actual Purple Combat Toad is actually going to be acted out as a, not only some tips and hints during the forms of specific battle skills, but it also acts like a, almost like a tutorial kind of guide for able to know how combat actually works out to be during the forms of in a battling system. So, again, it's a bit tricky to explain because this is definitely new to me, especially noticeable. Well, there's also another change for that particular point as well, is that unlike the original version of Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, remember that particular little, you know, that Pianto gamble thing? That's in the GameCube original version, that basically though is that you come across as that slot machines. Whilst unlike the remake though, it did somehow replace the slot machines into a matching game, which, kind of thinking about it, the matching game is almost inspired by Super Mario Bros. 3. So yeah, that's actually pretty cool and everything, although you can still able to experience other challenges, like for instance with that paper game, or paper plane game, as well as the boat game, and even with paper mode game, and even with the tube game as well. So there is still accessibility, being able to actually experience other like mini-game challenges here and there, during the forms of that particular Pianta Polio kind of stuff. So anyway, as you can see right there, we're now on to the next mission that we ended up in a battle course. And this time we're going to be taking control of the Bonanza brothers in journey forms of, well, trying to go past those gates. And as a result, it did manage to take place in, let's just say, Rumble Ramps, where basically though is about the fact, as I mentioned this before, this is basically a battle course basically, so no matter what though, you have to go through those specific serious amount of gates, and then once you go through enough gates, then the more points you're going to be added in. So I will admit though, this particular mission is actually kind of tricky to me though, but that's just mainly because I'm pretty much used to with the racetracks, because I'm pretty concerned that in order to able to actually access to those battle courses right there is to able to experience multiplayer, specifically with local multiplayer, because similar to the forms of how it does it on not only Super Mario Kart, but also with Mario Kart 64, and even with Mario Kart Super Circuit with the Game Boy Advance cable link, and even especially noticeable with Mario Kart Double Dash, that basically though we can't able to experience battle mode single player wise until Mario Kart DS and onwards. So yeah, kind of strange, kind of thinking about it, but regardless of such though, we did somehow achieve a singular A rank, so we are going to be perfectly fine with that. So anyway, the next thing they did somehow shown us, and that's what appears to be they added in some gallery options in journey forms within the journal menu. So basically though, is about the fact that not only did they somehow bring the concept art gallery, but also they somehow bring up the music player, so you can able to actually listen to good old music soundtrack in journey forms of the menu selection, which is always a swell addition to that. And also they've somehow mentioned about the forms of well, as I say, specific changes, specifically with new music, and on top of that, in journey forms within other footage of that particular remake. Of course, the majority of some other characters do have more expressive animations, so because of that though, it will be a sight to behold, especially noticeable because in journey forms of the preview gameplay of that particular remake of Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, is that somehow Mario can able to actually look up in the actual skies above in journey forms within Chapter 1. So yeah, that's actually pretty cool though, and I'm still very excited for that, especially noticeable I can able to experience Chapter 1 again, as well as the future chapters again. I mean, that would be super duper exciting. And also, as far as I've noticed something, is that depending on what chapter you go into, likely in Chapter 1 all the way up to likely Chapter 8 or something, it feels like that when it comes to battle themes, it seems that it's gonna have its own music depending on what world you go into. Something very similar to the forms of how it does it on the majority of the Kingdom Hearts games. So there, yeah, that's actually gonna be pretty hyped, especially noticeable because, well, you know, I'm pretty excited to see how the actual specific world's battle theme actually gonna plays out to be. So. Oh, and of course there's also another thing I want to point out as well, is that recently in Japan, for the sake of the forms of the Nintendo Switch online subscription services, specifically with the expansion pack, out of nowhere, that the Japanese version of that app did somehow receive yet another Nintendo 64 game, and this time what appears to be by the forms of Blast Corps, or to be more specifically, Blast Dozer, at least to be more specifically with that particular English subtitle for it, I guess, underneath that Japanese language title or something. And relatively speaking, that's what I can really say about it. And also another thing I want to point out as well, and suffice to say, we'll pretty much have to do one more mission for now, which does manage to take place in Sandy Drifts, and it looks like we're going to be playing as Tails while trying to do some bit of racing. So I'm actually really looking forward to this particular racetrack, because as far as I'm concerned, that yes indeed, I did indeed manage to unlock some more musical tracks, so that way we can able to boot up the Monkey Race music, because it'll be rather fitting, because obviously though this is a racing mission of course. So because of that though, as soon as that particular thing loads, there we go. So I wonder what competitors are we about to be racing against this time? Well, obviously there's the forms of well, I can't really say about the forms of that particular footage right now, because as far as I'm aware, there's also another thing I want to point out as well. Well, suffice to say that when it comes to the forms of what has been happening during the forms of the actual specifically for the films department, my god, the actual the twisted childhood universe is going to exist. So yeah, this is very something else entirely. Like, they've somehow listed not only one, not two, but 6 films in that specific catalog with that particular the Twisted Childhood universe. So as a result, they've listed Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, both 1 and 2, and they also listed Bambi, the Retconning, and there's also the forms of Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmare, I think is what it says anyway. And there's also a Pinocchio film, which appears to be Pinocchio on String. And finally, Pooh Universe Monsters Assemble, which, oh my god, this is seriously ridiculously over the top. Which, it's not necessarily over the top, but it's just that, it's just weird, you know? It's just too darn weird. Oh, and another thing I want to point out as well, it seems to be more specifically that Little Big Planet is officially dead, or something like that, which as it turns out that Little Big Planet 3 server shutdown has been addressed. Like, due to ongoing technical issues, which resulted in the Little Big Planet 3 servers for PlayStation 4 has been taken offline temporarily since in 3 months ago, which as a result, yeah, I've got nothing else to say about that, I guess. Although I would have liked to explain about the forms of another new additions for Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door Remake at some point, but let's just say it's probably best if we're able to talk more about it until on Wednesday, because still, I'm pretty hyped about it. So all it needs left now is, of course, the overview trailer for Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, which I think that's going to be up at some point by the end of May. And as far as I'm aware, for Sonic Cross Shadow Generations, well, I believe it's about to due out maybe at some point later on, specifically on the second half of the year or something. Well, then again, it's a bit tricky to tell. So with that being said, folks, it's time we got the endings of this point right here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of Sonic and SEGA All-Stars Racing on Mission Mode. And that we're going to be going on to the next mission, which is mission number 45, which is Tokyo Toe Show. So yeah, I'll see you guys until on Wednesday. Later, fellas.